Welcome back, guys. So this is our final episode that we are recording for 2023. So we thought we'd do a bit of a 2023 wrapped episode and ask each other some questions around, I suppose, what this year has been like for us, what we've learned, what we can kind of translate to you guys from what we have learned this year, and I suppose goals for the next year ahead as well. We're also going to do a little bit of a listener Q&A as well. So we popped some Q&A boxes on our stories and got a few questions from you guys. So we'll cover those at the end too. But firstly, Loz, you've just come back from Melbourne once again.
I know. I feel like it's every second ep.
Yeah. How was your time in Melbourne?
Yeah, it was really good. When I got back, like my housemates were like, oh, the weather looked kind of shit. I'm like, yeah, but my expectations for Melbourne are so low that it's not like I go there being like, where's the sun? It was really good. We ran a women's workshop on like the Saturday just gone. So it was myself and then Jess and Amy, who are two other trainers that I work with at STC. And it was like an idea that I came up with like 6-ish weeks ago, just based off speaking with a lot of women who were feeling a little bit, not left out, but like struggling to find like their new circle, wanting to do work on themselves. And just I felt like I'd never really had anyone kind of like cheer for them before. So I was like, let's just put them all in the same room. We can do like a mindset workshop. We did a training session together. And then Amy did like a group hypnotherapy session.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really cool to watch. And just to see something, like my part was first. And then to sit back and like watch the other two girls and just be like, this was just something that I kind of came up with like 6 weeks ago. And now it's, in front of me and people gave us really good feedback. So yeah, I know that I want to do more of that. Just like bringing people together, showing them other people who are also trying to get better and that kind of thing. Cause I know how powerful that can be. But yeah, apart from that, it was good, like spending time with Ben and Amy and just weather wasn't too bad, but yeah, the workshop was definitely the highlight.
Yeah,
what about you?
awesome.
What have you been up to?
The last week has just been pretty chaotic in terms of, I guess, social Christmas stuff. We're in the silly season now. So had a few Christmas parties and things like that over the weekend. Had a friend up from Melbourne, so catching up with her. And just really busy trying to finish up what I can before the end of the year regarding this relaunch that I'm doing with my business in the new year. So lots of work on that and just trying to tie everything up. I can't believe that Christmas is like less than 2 weeks away.
Yeah, I know. It's wild. Are you like taking breaks from clients? Like I know like small business owners don't take holidays, but like are you taking a break?
Yeah, I used to not take holidays over the Christmas period, but I think no matter how much you love your job, you do need to reset at some point, and it has been a really big year. So yeah, I take 3 weeks off over the Christmas period from client check-ins. I'll still have to do some work during that time on the business and stuff. And obviously the girls I have in comp prep, I don't take time off from that, so I will still be working for those clients.
Yeah.
But yeah, still try and have a decent break. What about you?
Yeah, I've got like only 2 weeks off from my corporate work. They normally try and make us take longer off, but I don't really need that long off, especially like living in the Gold Coast and like work from home. I actually like working whilst everyone else is not working too, because you get like 50% more done. In terms of client stuff, I like blocked out the week between like Christmas and New Year's just for like no calls. But I don't have any like events or course creation or anything on. I'm going to try and use the time, like as you said, to kind of work on it, like do some planning, do some like co-coaching design stuff with like the other coaches in STC, and just, sit back and have like that more creative time rather than like rush, got to do this. Like actually sit there and like allow ideas to like bubble to the surface.
Yeah, that's a good way to use that time, I think, just in the creative zone, because I don't get enough time to sit in that creative zone.
Yeah, I mean, that's how the workshop kind of like, came about. If I don't slow down, then these ideas, because I have a lot of ideas. It's just like the way that my brain works, sometimes too many. But if I don't sit and kind of like think through them, be like, no, that one's shit, like that one's good, that kind of thing. You just get stuck in the kind of rat race. So it is important to slow down, I'm telling myself.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's look back at 2023. So I wrote us down some questions yesterday, and I wrote them down and then was like thinking about my own answers, and I was like, oh, I've made these more difficult than I intended. But my first one was, what are 3 words you would use to describe 2023 and why?
Well, when I first read this question, the first one that came to my mind was chaotic. I
Yep.
feel like this year has been pretty nuts in terms of travel for myself. I think I added it up and I've taken like 35 plus flights this year.
I forgot you went to Europe. That feels like so long ago.
Yeah. So obviously I had that big Europe trip. So there was a lot of flights involved in that itself, even just internal travel in Europe. A lot of traveling around for the shows this year, had clients competing across all the different states. So I was flying like to Sydney one day, Sunshine Coast the next, back to Gold Coast after that, like just flying around absolutely everywhere with the shows. I was also transitioning a lot of my belongings up from Melbourne. So there was a lot of back and forth flights with that as well. So chaotic is probably how it felt.
Yep.
I definitely felt very unsettled in that sense for a long time during 2023, just because I suppose I was never in one place for more than like a few weeks at a time. And so it was, I was kind of like living out of a suitcase for a lot of this year, to be honest. But it's been fun at the same time. It's definitely not a bad chaotic. I also thought liberating was a good word to kind of describe 2023 for me, because I feel like I finally let go of the fear of 100% committing to moving to the Gold Coast.
Right.
Because
How long had you been thinking about it before you did the move?
Since I was literally 17.
Wow. Okay. So a while.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to move to Queensland since I was 17, but there was always something like holding me in Melbourne. And I just kind of got to the point, I'm like, well, it's now or never. I just have to actually do this and bite the bullet. So I think it was, a really empowering year in that respect, that I finally actually went with what I really wanted to do, and I stopped letting fear hold me back in that regard. And the last one I would use to describe 2023 was introspective, I think, just because I have had to do a lot of, I guess, soul searching and like kind of reconnecting with myself through this whole gut protocol that I've spoken about a million times on here. And the journey of, I suppose, not being able to train so hard and having to really wind all that down.
Which for a long period of time was your, like, a lot of your identity, right?
Yeah, a lot of my identity is wrapped up in training hard and training for something. So to try and like take my foot off the gas with that is such a massive challenge for me. So I think that, and just trying to find purpose in other ways through my life was, something that I had to do this year, and just, I guess, really starting to understand myself better and what my body really needs.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, what are yours?
My first one was courage. I remember like last year I did this activity with the 3 words. My first one was pain, which sounds bleak, but it was. And to have like my first one, I guess in like comparison, big courage is like huge for me. The reason I put that down is like I've done a lot of things this year for the first time. Like I started my new job in January in a completely like new area. And really like that was probably the biggest leap I'd taken in my corporate world, and really took it on and have done, I think, really well. We separately, but moved interstate, and that I hadn't been thinking about it since 17, but even just to, like, it's not small, right? Like it's, when you're up in the Gold Coast and, you know, people look at you and it's like, oh, it looks amazing. It's like, yeah, but, you know, for the first 3, 4, maybe even 6 months, you feel slightly out of place. And I mean, even still sometimes, because you don't have, you know, I didn't have my family, or I don't have my friends that have known me for 10 years and I have to say 2 words and they kind of understand me. So yeah, like the move, I got back into coaching and went into, you know, just mindset, which was a big deal for me, because, you know, you have the self-doubt and the imposter stuff of like, you know, who am I to be doing this and blah, blah, blah. And like, that's just exploded into like, has led me to, working with a team that I've always kind of craved, you know what I mean? Like I think I've said to you before, the work stuff, I always thought that I might have to do on my own. But being surrounded by those guys has been really, really cool. And we started a podcast. Like I was reflecting and I was like, this was just like something that we kind of talked about like the first time we met, which is wild. And I remember going home after we met and I was like, oh, like we both spoke about wanting to start podcasts separately. And then I went back and I was like, oh, I feel like I really connect with Bec. Like that was like a really good conversation. I was like, is she going to think I'm weird if I ask like if she wants to do the podcast with me after like one time? And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to ask her. And then, yeah, rest is history. We did like the photo shoot and then like you went to Europe and like I think we've fallen into a rhythm like pretty quickly. But like, yeah, again, that's not small. Like we've never done podcasts before. So I'm just like really proud of us. And then like, yeah, that's where kind of courage comes from, just like a lot of firsts this year. Mm-hmm. The second one you won't be surprised with is hustle. Mm-hmm. I was scared to put it down. I thought you were going to yell at me. But it just is. Like I was like, I can't not put it down. Like I've probably worked harder this year than I have ever worked in my life. And I've worked some hard years. But it's come from, that we spoke about in our hustle culture episode, it's coming from a different place now, which has made it a lot more enjoyable. There's still times where I'm like, fuck, I am exhausted, like, and I've got maybe like a deadline or something that I've got to hit or some course that I had told myself I was going to create, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think it's been nice to even just like discover like new levels that I was like, yeah, cool. I can trust myself to get it done. But I have also learnt the push pull, like even the last kind of couple weeks, were really hectic. And then once we finished the workshop, I just took like 2-3 days of like almost nothing. Yeah. So learning how to manage that a little bit better. And the last one is self-acceptance, which is, I know 2 words, but yeah, I think probably similar to like your introspection word. Yeah, I just feel like I just know myself and not just know, but like accept a lot of me for me after this year. Like going through stuff from last year and then kind of coming out the other side and like doing all of the things for the first time. It's like that's how you kind of really learn who you are and like what you're made of. And lots of different parts of me that maybe I once felt self-conscious of and I'm not fixed. But yeah, I just feel the most myself I probably like ever have.
Yeah, amazing. Love that.
Second question is, how do you think you've grown as a person in 2023?
I think it probably already ties into my first answer a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yours probably does as well. But I suppose I feel as though this year has been really good for me in terms of learning how to switch off more and I guess respect my own boundaries a little bit more instead of just push all the time. Even going to Europe, to be honest, was a massive step for me because it's been a long time since I've done a big travel trip like that. Like since I started my PT business, which was nearly 10 years ago. Like I've had little trips here and there, but I haven't done a big trip like that. And I think it was always kind of scary, obviously, running your own business. It's hard to take time away from navigating like the time difference and doing that sort of stuff, which actually worked out completely fine and showed me that it is completely possible to do that sort of thing. But yeah, just making more time to do those sorts of things, like live my life, really enjoy my life, and also, I guess, give back to myself and switch off a little bit more, where I previously have very much been on all year round. So I think that's been a really good growth as a person because at the end of the day, like I need that in my life. And that's why I'm in this position where I have had to do all these like gut protocols and stuff because I wasn't making enough time for that. And yeah, I feel like my health and everything has improved as a result of that too.
Yeah, nice. Mine is, I think I'm like a little bit softer, not muscle mass wise, but like just, which sounds strange kind of like speaking with the hustle stuff, but like, I think I value like connection a lot more. really seeking to like understand people. I'm not as judgmental as I probably once was. I don't know if that's all this year, but just I'm probably comparing to like early 20s. I value my emotional side rather than seeing it as an inconvenience that's stopping me from doing other things. And yeah, just learning how to look inwards and just like make time for that. I know like my outwards projection often seems very like work and focus and that kind of thing, which it is, but it's like an internal feeling. Like I feel a lot more like open and just like willing to, like have different kinds of conversations with people as well, and also like give them permission to have them with me. Does that make sense?
Nice. Yeah.
Cool.
100%.
Next question. What is a lesson you have learned that you think would benefit others?
Okay, I had a good think about this one, and I feel like this has probably shown up for me this year to some degree, but it's also something that I have a lot of conversations with clients with. So it's not necessarily something I've learned this year, but I think it's a really important message, and it's when people show you who they are, believe them. And I love this quote because I feel like so many people like, oh, but, this person's acting this way but saying this and it doesn't align. And people always believe the words instead of the actions.
Yeah.
And I think people get so caught up in wanting to, I guess, believe the best of someone or see the good in someone. And that is something I am very guilty of, I suppose. Like I always will try and give people the benefit of the doubt and see the good in someone. But I think it's really important to like actually look at people's actions. And if they're not in alignment with the words don't really mean that much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I made a reel on this the other day.
Oh, did you?
You commented on it.
Oh, yeah, 'cause I said, that's right. Yeah, that's how my memory works at this point of the year.
You said that. I was like, oh, cool. She's like, yeah, you'll agree with this because you made a reel on it.
Yeah, because I say that all the time to people. And I've had that conversation so many times recently. I'm pretty sure I had it yesterday with a friend as well.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to bring that one up because I feel like it's such a strong message.
Definitely. And it's one of those things as well that it's like can be easier to say than it is to take on. But I'm going to tack on to the end of yours and then do my own kind of lesson, only because I do really, really agree with this. Most of like our internal pain and suffering comes from like unmet expectations. And we keep kind of causing our own pain by not adjusting our expectations when we have new evidence. That makes sense? So it's like I was speaking to a client about this the other day as well, and it was like a work situation, and their leader, like their boss, was being very kind of like publicly like humiliating, kind of, putting them down in public. And they were saying like, oh, it would have been really good, to have them like pull me aside and say it, blah, blah. And this is like the 20th time this, boss has done that. And I kind of was like, they're not going to. Like, that is nice. Like, that would have been nice if they had done that. And, you want them to act in a way. But then that person right there is not going to do that. They've shown you that they're going to keep doing this. So it's like you can either keep entering the situation hoping that this time will be different, but it's just not going to be. And it's like then once you accept that, then you've got options. It's like, cool, do I say something? Or do I just like accept that is this person and I'll just have to work around it? But it's like then at least you're making a deliberate choice, not just like getting your hopes up every time that they're going to be different and then being in pain when they're not again. Because it's like even like a dating situation, I think is where people feel it the most. Yeah, it's like people get addicted to the up and down, right? It's like dopamine loves like not being able to predict what's going to happen. And so we get hooked on this like, oh my God, they'd messaged me and now they're gone for 4 days and now they're back. And it's like a fucking pokies machine, literally. And then we get like when they've shown you that they're going to be inconsistent, don't be disappointed when they keep being inconsistent. But we just keep hoping that like, oh, we're going to change them or we fall in love with potential. Like it's not going to happen. You're going to waste the next 2 years. I'll shut up on this in a second, but like it's something that I feel very strongly about. You're going to waste, this is how the 2-year-long like situationships happen. Because it's like, maybe this month, no. Yeah. Like if you're fine with it, if you're fine with the inconsistency and you're kind of going with the flow, blah, 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 that's fine. But make sure that you're actually fine with it. You're not just saying that you're fine with it. Yeah, it's like just believe them. Like, you know, when things are right, it sounds cliche, but it's like, what's the saying? If they like you, you'll know. If they don't, you'll be confused.
Yeah, 100%. That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, now my lesson. I feel like we could do a whole episode just on that, what you just said. Mine is to try different things. I think I see a lot of people, you know, find their little comfort zone and they're like, cool, this is it. This is me. I'm good here. I'm safe. But there's a little voice in the back of their head that's like, oh, maybe I could do more. Or that looks kind of cool over there, blah, blah, blah. And something that my family instilled in me, particularly my dad, was this message of like everything can be fixed. And say, even with like the move to Gold Coast, right? It's like we could move back. Like just try different things and work out, like what you like, you know, if maybe it's a slightly different job, or like even if you're in a job and it's not feasible for you to leave financially, it's like, can you do something on a Saturday and just like do a little side hustle, like whatever it is, just to try different things where like perhaps the risk is a little bit lower. Try different training styles. It's like we have this idea in our head of who we are. And it's like, I've seen people completely reinvent themselves in like a few months. Like it's possible. And just try different things and like redefine what success looks like. Like you just trying the thing can be success. And I think that will help people to kind of like grow and just like once they try one new thing and they see that like, oh, things could be different, you just realize you could literally go and do anything.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so moving forward, I think we'll just touch on our goals for 2024. So, Loz, what do your goals look like for 2024? Have you had to think about them yet?
Yeah, I have. I haven't. I normally, at this time of year, will divide it into like work, personal, health and fitness, and then like financial goals. I haven't done that yet, but some like overarching themes, which goals should be connected to your values. Mine are to really grow like my coaching business. It does have a ceiling on it because it's like coupled with my full-time work. I'm only one person. But I want to do more events because that's like the thing that really like lights me up. I really enjoyed building the course I just built. So like I want to start doing more of that. I really want to put myself into a position to buy another property, probably in Gold Coast, but we'll see on like timing and interest rates. And more like spontaneity. I don't know if that's like an actual goal.
I think that can be a goal. Everyone goes on and on about like SMART goals and it has to be specific, measurable, etc. But no, I think that it's okay to have goals that are a little bit more fluffy, I suppose, and less measurable. Yeah,
well, because I think it's really just like it's like a theme for my life, right? Which I often do when I rework out like my values. But even say like at the start of this year, I didn't mention like the goals that I set. One of them was just like be open to a relationship. Mm-hmm. Now you could look at that and be like, well, you're still single, so you failed. But not really, because I think that like I spend a lot of time going inwards and I do feel very open to if it were to happen, whereas I definitely wasn't at the start of the year. And so I would probably still stick with that theme in terms of like remaining open to just like, I don't like to close it off to just like romantic relationships. I just want to be open to like finding connection really. So spending more time like nurturing existing and finding new types of relationships. And yeah, just like more like freedom and like spontaneity. But I have to kind of work myself. I would never like just take a bunch of random trips if I'm not in like a financial position to do so. But that's where I'm trying to work towards, you know, just like more sunny coast stuff, like let's go to Byron for the weekend and like things like that. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping 2024 will look like. What about you?
Awesome. I think the most obvious, I guess, one for me is with my business. I've mentioned that we're doing a bit of a relaunch in 2024, which is really exciting. So that is all in the works now, and that's like a big goal for me to get done, get launched by late Jan, early Feb. I really want to have that up and running. It's our 10th year in business, which is crazy.
That's nuts, man.
I know. So very excited to celebrate that with this new look and feel and service that we're going to be providing. So that's one of my biggest goals, I suppose, and everything that comes along with that. I do want to travel somewhere new. When I was coming home from Europe, I made a list of all the countries that I've visited so far in my life, and I'm up to just under 30, I think it was.
It's pretty cool.
And I just like, when I travel, I like to tick off somewhere new and see something I haven't seen before. So I want to see somewhere. I don't care where it is, haven't decided yet, but I want to see somewhere new. Add to that list. I'm thinking about maybe competing in something new. So
I thought you were going to say competing. I was like, didn't last episode you announce like pretty much your retirement? I'd like to do that too, actually. That's probably a goal I hadn't thought of. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this a hard goal because I'm just going to kind of see what happens. But I wouldn't mind competing in something like the Turf Games, which is essentially a functional fitness comp.
We've got to find a rope.
Yeah, I got to learn how to climb a rope.
I should know how to do that.
Anyway, so maybe something like that, just for something different, because I do like having a goal to train before. I don't know. It could be even honestly as simple as doing, I don't know, a 10K fun run. honestly, I don't even.
I get the needing to I would like to compete in something too, and I don't really care what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I can probably run 10K in another couple of weeks because I've been building up my running. I could probably do it now, to be honest, if I really wanted to. But
you probably just need
I just want an event. I just want something at the end, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm considering doing something like that. And then I think, like you mentioned about having the theme, one of my big themes for 2023 was, spontaneity, and freedom is like one of my number one values.
Yeah, same.
So to have freedom to go and do little things on the weekend, like get away for a weekend like Loz was talking about, that is so important to me. And also I think it ties in with the masculine, feminine energy conversation we were having in the last episode. And I really want to make sure I continue to spend a lot of time in my feminine energy doing stuff like that. And being spontaneous, because when I was in like my competing era, it was a very rigid routine, and I would get a little bit of anxiety going and doing those fun, spontaneous things because I wasn't in complete control of like my competing goals doing that. So it's been so good for me this year to have that balance a bit more between the masculine and feminine side. And I really feel like I have stepped into a more feminine version of myself through that and spending more time in that zone. And I just want to continue that because I do feel more balanced as a whole as a result.
Yeah, awesome. I think as well, like on the, I know we did masculine, feminine, but I often see it as like being in my masculine almost allows me to then do things which are more feminine in terms of like, if I work hard now, I'll have enough money to go on trips. Does that make sense? So sometimes when I am like, you know, working on a weekend or hustling or whatever, I'm like, freedom is the goal. And you might look at working 6 days a week as not very free. But firstly, it's by choice. But like that is the driver, right? Is like being able, that's what I want. Like I want the ability to be like, I miss my family. I'm going to go down to Melbourne tomorrow and like not really care how much the flight is and like stuff like that. So it's interesting. Like as you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, like masculine's kind of allowing me to be feminine. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. You need both, right?
Yeah.
Which is what we kind of said in that episode. So from there, now that we've spoken about our goals, we'll jump into our listener Q&A. So we had some good ones. We'll start with one that was, do you have advice on being happy being single and not feeling alone or feeling pressure to be committed? Loz, what do you have to say on this?
I would say work out like where the pressure is coming from. Like, is it external? Is it because you feel like you're not kind of enough like on your own, rather than just being like, oh, I feel pressure. It's like, where's it coming from? The second part I would say is like, make sure you spend time alone getting to know yourself, which always sounds like kind of counterintuitive advice, but I really believe in it, because I believe now that I'm in the best possible position to enter a relationship should it arrive, because I feel very, very sure of like who I am. I think in the past though, like if you're searching for it and it's coming from like I need this to feel good about myself, because if someone else approves of me, then, you know, that means I'm enough. I just think you'll end up in the wrong relationship, even if you find one, because it's like the relationship you're searching for is not the one that's like filling some sort of validation void. So it would be like spending time alone. And then like the last one is just like work on becoming the person, and also like finding the people. I'll split it in two. Work on becoming the person that you want to date wants to date. I say that a lot. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you're feeling, you know, like if you're not doing a lot of activities or whatever it is, it's like work on becoming the person that you're like super proud of. And then that will help you to feel less like you need someone. And then the second part of that is like focus on just like, I try not to think romantic partner as its own sort of thing. I just see like connection. So it's like whenever I'm going to like new events, or if it's like if I'm speaking to someone on Instagram or whatever, it's like, let's just go in with like curiosity and, you know, can I find like new friendships and that kind of thing. I think like the more people I have had around me that I feel connected to, the less I feel like I need to fill some sort of like void.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. I think if you are single and you are struggling with the idea of that, it is really important to be busy with other things and yeah, see your friends more, get some hobbies, like fill up your life. Like your life, you don't want to have this like empty space, I think, that you feel needs to be filled by another person. You can fill it with heaps of things that aren't a person. And meeting a partner is not something you can just like decide that you want to do and go and pick one up from Coles. Like that's not how it works.
Not any good ones anyway.
No. So you really do have to just kind of focus on living your own best life. And to be honest, that will make you more attractive to potential partners anyway, if you have your own thing going on. But I think in terms of being happy alone, I think it's also a really important thing that you focus on achieving to even start thinking about inviting a relationship into your life, because a relationship shouldn't be something that completes you.
Yeah.
It should add value to your life, but it shouldn't be something that you need to feel whole. You can be whole on your own. So I think that's really, really important, because when people enter relationships and they're not happy alone and they're feeling like they're doing it to try and complete something or fill a void, then it just ends up really codependent and it's not healthy. So my idea of a healthy relationship is like two people who are independent and live their own lives but love spending time together and like have a life together as well. So you need to still have your separate life regardless. So focus on building the separate life. And then once you meet someone, then you can build what that together life looks like, but also don't lose touch of that separate life, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. I think if like, because I think people get in their heads like, when I find a partner, I'll be happy. And it's like, you just, if that's where it's coming from, you get into a relationship and then you'll just be afraid of them leaving. Like you'll just find something new to be scared about. Like, oh, I'm never going to find someone. And then you'll find someone and it'll be like, oh, they're going to leave me. Like, because you didn't kind of like fix in before like you went out.
Yeah. So we'll stick with the dating theme because we do have another dating question. Then we'll move on to some more health and fitness ones. So we got a question. What is dating like for you ladies? How do you find the right person to date?
Do you want to start?
Yep. I feel like I have a good answer to this one. I did have a good think about this, and I want to answer it generalized, not specific to me necessarily. But how do you find the right person to date? This honestly comes down to two things. And I read this post on this the other day. It came up on Instagram about like chemistry and compatibility.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really important one to think about when you are looking for potential partners, because we need chemistry and we need compatibility. But I think people tend to get really caught up in the chemistry element and forget about the compatibility element. So obviously chemistry is like physical attraction, excitement, like that sort of thing, sexual chemistry, whatever. So that side of things, I think when that is really strong, people tend to get really blinded to the actual compatibility side, which compatibility is important if you want it to be anything long lasting. Yeah. And compatibility essentially comes in a lot of different elements. Like, for example, do you want the same things out of life? Do you live a similar lifestyle? Do you have similar values? And that can be in terms of anything, like even religion and politics.
Yeah,
like
they're all very big parts of life.
Yeah. And if you guys like really butt heads on things like that, then that can be a massive problem down the track. And compatibility as well in what you actually want from dating. Because if someone's looking for something short term or not serious, and then another person's looking for something long term, well, that's not compatible either. So we kind of need to, I think, when you are dating, like use your logical brain a little bit, and don't just get caught up in the emotional brain where you're just looking at chemistry. I do think chemistry is important, and I think a relationship without any chemistry will probably like fizzle out.
It's a friendship.
It is a friendship. Yeah. That is a very good call. Yeah, and I've definitely I've seen that happen before as well. Yep. So I think it's important that you have both. So yeah, for myself personally, some of my top 3 values are freedom. So, you know, I want someone who also values that and is, you know, able to, you know, wants to go away and have adventures and do those sorts of things. Health and fitness is obviously a massive value to me, so that is really important. And also ambition and like success and drive.
I was like, yeah.
How did we not think of this? Nah. So yeah, that's obviously kind of the foundations that I've always like thought are the most important things for me in terms of compatibility.
Yep. I love that. I completely agree. And I think we sort of touched on the compatibility thing in the dating app. I can't remember. But as you said, it is, everyone forgets about it. It's like, oh yeah, we don't like living the same life, or we don't want the same things from the future. It's like, that's how you end up in the 10-year relationship resenting the other person, because no one set clear expectations. Like no one was willing to go like, hey, I know, like, I think you're great, but like, we don't want the same life. Like it's such a big part.
Yeah, I think there does often need to be some level of compromise on little things, but the major things you need to kind of be on the same path with.
Yeah, and it's like working out what are your non-negotiables versus what are things that you will kind of like move on.
Yeah.
Right? But I think you can only, I wrote down like, I think you can only be objective about compatibility if you are secure in yourself. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is like, if you are low on self-confidence, kind of touching on the question that we went through before, and you're like looking for someone to like externally validate you pretty much, right? You're then going into dating thinking like anyone who I can kind of catch, I need to hold on to, right? Because you have to, if that's your mindset, then your internal narrative has to be like, I'm not going to find what I'm looking for because I'm not really like worthy of finding it. And it's like, if that's how you feel, you will not objectively assess compatibility because you're just going to have your fucking blinders on being like, I don't want to look at that over there because I found someone.
Yeah. And you'll also make too many compromises,
I'd
say.
That's how you end up in the, like, oh, it's okay. Like I'm playing like I'm cool with everything, but inside I'm like dying. It's like that's not a happy relationship. So yeah, I think working on feeling secure in yourself and like that inner belief that like, I will find what I'm looking for and I'm worthy of finding what I'm looking for because, you know, I've built myself into the person that I feel proud of, blah, blah, blah. Because I can tell you from like experience, I used to be like the very anxious, like I'll take anyone who's willing to say that they like me, and now it's completely different. And I can objectively assess compatibility, like if if someone didn't want the freedom, or if they were like nah, not that kind of like ambitious, I would but you know, we had good conversation or whatever, I would honestly be able to be like, this isn't for me because like I think you're great, blah, 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 but we're just not on the same kind of path, because that's driven from the belief of like, I will find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another good thing to keep in mind with this is a quote that a therapist that I worked with in the past has told me, and I passed on to everyone basically. And that is, you know, no one's going to give you 100% of what you want, and what you're really looking for is 90%. And you've got to decide what you're willing to have in that 10%, because that's so true. Like, no one is perfect.
No.
And even though, you know, someone might tick a hell of a lot of your boxes, at the end of the day, there's going to be, with anyone, whether it's a friend or a partner or a family member, there's going to be something that like you guys disagree on, or rubs you the wrong way a little bit, or there's something that's just not quite exactly in alignment with you in any sort of relationship. And I think it's just about figuring out like, what are your highest values and what's like really important, and what are the little things where you're like, okay, they're not so great at this one thing, but like that's not actually a deal breaker for me.
Yeah. And it's spending time on, well, you said like, you know, maybe they tick a lot of boxes. It's like a lot of people don't even know what their boxes are.
Yeah.
They're just looking for something or someone, right? It's like, spend the time, work out what it is you're actually looking for. So then you know when you find it, but then also you know when you perhaps catch something that isn't it.
Yeah.
And working out what's a non-negotiable, like what am I not willing to budge on. But also working out like what the boxes actually like look like for you. Like I talk about, you know, I require ambition. That doesn't necessarily mean I need them to be like running their own business or whatever. Like I was speaking to Ben about this the other day. I was like, all it really means to me is that like you want to be getting better at life.
Yeah.
Like, and you're passionate about what you do.
Yes, that is key.
I would
Someone
never
who likes
be able
their job.
I just couldn't, like, that's a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
If someone was like, you know, the Sunday night depression, or like, you know, I hate my job, I'd just off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like getting home miserable every day.
Yeah, because I'd be like, I fucking hate my job. I'd be like, well, do something about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would just be like passion for life is like more of the requirement, rather than like how it might be construed as like some sort of, you need to be running 3 businesses, like, because that's not it.
Yeah, no, not like that at all. And it's not about like monetary or anything like that. It's purely, it's a personality trait, ambition, I believe.
I need it in friends too. Like,
Yeah.
I often say, like, if you work at Woolies or whatever and you like stack shelves and you fucking love it, that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. But anyone who's like, if you ask them, oh, what do you do? They're like, oh, I do this. Like, it's not that. But I'm like, yeah, I'm bored. I'm like, let's go and create lives. Anyway.
Yes.
What's the next question?
All right, let's jump into a little fun one that I thought was very random. You're trapped on an island. What are 5 things you want to have, Loz?
I mean, my first instinct, I feel like I want weights, but if I'm on an island, I probably don't want to be exerting a lot of energy, right?
No, you might not be eating, girl.
I've got no food, but I'm like, let's
deload
burn
week.
cows. Okay, maybe like, I'd be dead in like 3 days. Because I'm like, oh, I'll get like something to cook on. I'm like, where am I finding food? I don't know. Do you know, whilst I think, have you thought about this?
I want a boat so I can sail back to the mainland.
You're the person who's like, if you could have a wish from a genie, like, I want more wishes.
Yeah, just a boat.
Just a boat?
Yeah.
That's it? You don't need
because
4
then
other
problem
things?
solved. I'm not on the
Or
island
you might
anymore.
be fucking miles from the mainland.
And a working GPS to find out where the mainland is.
Okay, well, let's say you know where it is and it's too far to get there by boat.
Nah, maybe a lighter to light a fire.
Yeah, I was thinking fire.
A blanket.
Blanket. Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
what I want. Yeah.
And what are those cooking things that camping
You and I
cooking
are
things
dead.
called.
Listen to it.
I don't know what it's actually called. I don't know how I'm going to catch the food.
Maybe I want a spear.
Yeah.
Fish.
A spear.
Cooking
We're
thing.
taking this question very practically. Let's move on.
Beck and I would be dead
I
in
don't know
2
if this
days.
is really helping any of our listeners, but hopefully
they
it gave
might.
you a laugh at least.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they might laugh at hearing us.
All right. Question. Feeling super burnt out and like I can't push as hard in my training, but I want to. What's the advice?
I feel like this is going to be super obvious advice, but probably take a break.
Yeah. That's what I would have said too. Take a deload if you haven't already. And if you are still experiencing that post deload, probably a big red flag that something is not right. Get things looked into. Assess your training regime. Are you overdoing it on a weekly basis?
Yeah.
Is there something going on internally? Like, do you need to get some pathology testing done? Like, see where your levels are at, iron, hormones, vitamin D, things like that. Sounds like if you can't recover from it after a deload, something is wrong.
Yeah, I think when we say take a break as well, like I know if someone said that to me, I'd be like, fuck off. Like, I think it's just like winding back, yeah. So make sure it's like you can still keep moving and keep training and that kind of thing, but like if you take a week or two at like a lighter like volume and intensity, I'd also like assess your stress across life. Like just really sit down and be honest with yourself about like how much you're handling in like work, like relationships, you know, just financial, like whatever it is. And perhaps you've just like overcooked it across the board. Because like at different points of your life, you'll be able to handle more training volume than other times. Mm-hmm. Also assess how many calories you're eating. Like if you're chronically under eating, that will definitely affect how hard you can train. And yeah, I think that would probably fix it, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Another good question was advice on increasing calories. Why am I so scared to eat over 2,000 calories? And I think I wanted to start answering this one by saying you're so scared because society has made you scared, because we grew up with so much messaging around like women need to eat absolutely nothing, especially if you were like a 90s baby. I feel like there was a lot of messaging around very ridiculous diets from celebrities. Nowadays, we have a lot of societal pressure from social media and like women on social media posting pictures of them extremely lean, whether it's competitors or women who are staying at an unreasonable level of condition year round. And I think that is like people think I need to eat less to look like that. And it's not actually the case. Like you do need to eat enough food to achieve your fitness goals. And that's what a lot of women are so scared of doing. They're scared to build calories up and take the time to put on muscle and then do a cut to reveal it. And that's what's going to actually achieve their goals. But in terms of advice on increasing calories, like honestly, you need to get a coach that has done it before and done it with many women, because it also takes the anxiety off you if you're already scared and then you're trying to do it yourself. You're just going to keep freaking out and reverting back to your old habits.
Up, down.
Yeah. So you need a coach that's going to help you through not just the increasing of the calories, but the psychological side of it too, and reassure you you're on the right path.
Yeah, and be able to set like those realistic kind of like expectations of like, you know, like weight gain, like not a lot, or like we're expecting it to rise at this kind of level. So then when it does happen, it's like, okay, cool, they told me that this was going to happen. Something I wrote down as well is like confronting your fear, working out what the real fear is. Because you're not really afraid of eating over 2,000 calories. That's a surface level fear. It's like, what are you actually afraid of?
Which is probably weight gain.
Weight gain, yeah. And then like deeper than that, what does that mean for you?
Loss of control.
Yeah, like people won't like me. You know, I won't be attractive, or like what is that underlying self-belief that is driving your fear of eating more? Because people just think it's like, oh, I'm afraid of food. It's like, no. It's like 3 or 4 levels deeper than that. And until you work out like what that core self-belief at the bottom is, it's probably presenting in other areas as well. It's never just like food restriction. It might be like a need for control, you know, in every area. Like, are you super anxious when people cancel on you, or like whatever? It's like it's normally coming from like a very, very deep fear. So like working out what that is and working through that as well as the food confronting it. What if that happens? Why do you think that's going to happen? Because not everyone has the same fears, right? Like more people, depending on, like we're not going to get into it, but like how you grew up and that kind of thing. Like if you think that, physical attractiveness is all your worth or that kind of thing, like trying to get to the bottom of like why this is affecting you so much, will just allow you to come at yourself with like a bit more self-compassion as well, to understand why you're so afraid of it, not just being like everyone else doesn't feel this and I do. So I would say spend time doing that as well.
Yeah, I really like that. That's a really good answer. There was another question on tips on how to approach training and nutrition while traveling Europe for 3 months to not lose progress.
I feel like this is a you question.
Yeah, well, obviously this is something that I did this year, so
Yeah.
I think it's a good question to answer. So if you're traveling for 3 months, it is a decent amount of time, and I guess you need to kind of decide how you want that holiday to look, because when I went to Europe, I knew I wanted to train over there, and I didn't want to be rushing around like spending one night in each city and like madly trying to see everything and then getting to the next place, because I've done trips like that to Europe before when I was younger, like early 20s. And yeah, they're fun. You get to see a lot of things, but it does make it hard to fit in going to the gym and things like that. Like you're active in other ways, like getting steps and exploring. But I just made sure I was in the same place for like 2 to 4 nights, every place that we kind of stayed basically, because I wanted to be able to actually like absorb myself in that city and really see it without being too rushed. I was obviously working a bit at the time as well, and I wanted to train. So I set the bar fairly low in terms of my training expectations. Like I was never going to go over there and train weights 5 times a week. Like I put myself on essentially like a maintenance goal.
Yeah.
So hit the gym 3 times a week, aim to maintain muscle while I'm over there, and that's it. Like obviously sessions are not going to be necessarily progressive and perfect. You might have completely different machine access to what you would usually have. You're going to different gyms in different cities. Like it's not a time to really push for progression. It's just a time to maintain. It's really not that hard to go to the gym overseas. Like just Google gyms in the area and you can find out. A lot of like the comments and stuff will say whether they have casual passes. You can go on their websites. There's also different apps and stuff. Overseas, like there was one I used in Portugal, I think it was, called Train Away, where you can like get a full list of gyms that offer casual visits. Like there's so many different services like that now. So yeah, it's actually pretty easy if you do want to train overseas. And then food-wise, again, like if you go into it with the attitude that you want to just indulge the whole time you're there, like obviously that's going to have a different result to if you're like, okay, I want to try the local cuisine, but I also know that if I eat like that 3 times a day, I'm not going to feel great. So I'm going to have like at least 2 of my main meals per day going to be focused on protein and veg. And then I might have like the local Portuguese tart or whatever it is. So yeah, having a bit of a balanced approach to nutrition and realizing that, you can still make good choices while you're over there as well.
Yeah. I haven't been to Europe, but this is just like general advice anyway. I think a lot of people will like shred for a holiday, right? As in like, oh, I've got to lean down before I go overseas. And I think if you end on a cut and then like go overseas, it's like you're asking for regain. So it's like, sure, I'm not saying don't get leaner to go overseas if that's like what you want. But it's like maybe try and time it so it's like you do the cut, you reverse up, then you go on the holiday. Because it's like if you finish at 1,500 calories and then go to Europe, it's like that's not going to be the best thing for you. So just trying to make sure that you're back on like a decent amount of calories before you go overseas, because it's just going to give you more like metabolic flexibility.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. In an ideal world, that is what you would do.
Yeah, if they've got enough time, it's not like next month.
Yeah. All right, last question that we'll do is your top 5 glute exercises.
Oh, do you want to go one at a time?
Okay, my number 1 is a barbell hip thrust.
Yeah.
And I like a barbell over a machine. I think nothing beats a barbell.
Interesting, because I was going to say hip thrust, but I was going to say like a Smith machine or something like that. I feel like you can control it more on the way down.
Yeah, okay.
I was ready for you to fight me on it.
Everyone's different what they prefer.
Yeah.
My glutes absolutely are on fire after a barbell hip
Yeah.
thrust. I can get it on a machine too, but I can push a lot more load in a barbell. So
Yeah.
I use both.
Yeah.
But for my heavy hip thrust, I like to use a barbell. So I like to use like a combination of the two.
Yeah, I think heavier barbell, I think for the like the 10 to 15 kind of reps, like constant tension, I
Yeah.
like a Smith machine. And I also I put my feet up onto a step for short person things.
Oh, yeah.
Allows you to get more range, just a little tip.
Yep. I don't have that problem.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I also really like a B stance hip thrust, and that one I quite like on a glute drive machine. Depending on the machine, that's the thing about using a machine for a hip thrust. It's got to work with your biomechanics.
They're also different too.
They're so different. So it's got to be a good machine. It's got to feel good to you.
Yep.
If you don't feel a lot of glute burn on the machine, then it's probably not the right machine for you.
Yep. My second one would be an RDL, just to, I think most people think like RDL hamstring, but it's like that's a really good like eccentric focused exercise for glutes. You can make it a little bit more glutey than less, if you put a bit more of like a bend in your knee, you can bias glutes a little bit more. But yeah, combining like RDL and like hip thrust where it's like lengthened position, shortened position is like one of my favorite kind of combinations.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that actually, because a lot of people when they train, they don't think about training it through the shortened position and the lengthened position. So RDL is definitely a staple. I love reverse lunges for glutes, especially on the Smith machine. I like this because, again, it's training the glute through like the stretch portion. If you do it with a barbell, you're also adding like a stabilization element, which means you have to recruit your glute med to stabilize, or with dumbbells because you're not locked into the machine. But I like it on a Smith machine because then I can go like pretty heavy with it.
Yeah.
And my glutes are always absolutely cooked the next day after I do that.
Yeah. My next one is 45-degree back extension with like rounded back. Again, that's like a shortened glute position, but you can play around with like feet positions as well, like slight turnout, like putting more kind of pressure through your toes just to like work out where like the load's going from. But I feel that a lot of people that I've given that to in the past, even with a round back, kind of struggle to recruit glutes, but it gets mine like really well. I like that one. And it's like, it's something that's like not like overly fatiguing. You can kind of like finish with it and go like almost like to a burnout because there's like very little skill element in it, but really like rounding kind of upper back to take lower back completely out of it.
Yeah. Just got to make sure the form is right on that one to get glutes for sure.
Yeah.
I also am going to chuck in a standard bikini girl single leg cable abduction.
Yeah, that's on mine too, but number 5.
Yeah, so I really like this one. I prefer it to an abductor machine because your leg is in a straightened position. Therefore, you're more likely to get your glute med rather than using like your TFL, which is essentially part of like your hip flexor for people who aren't aware. So what I would recommend is doing it on a cable and really making sure that you're recruiting through your glute to move your leg. So you've got to think about squeezing your glute to initiate the movement of your leg, not just swinging the leg. So this exercise is amazing, but it's got to be done right.
Yeah, it's often not.
Yeah, and it's a really good one for building like that glute shelf / upper glute area, creating roundness, and that's why I really like that one.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's my number 5. My number 4 is actually like a hack squat, like depending on like the angle, but the ones that kind of like lean back a little bit, you actually get like a really good amount of hip flexion and then like hip extension. And as opposed to like a barbell back squat, I can lift a lot more through a hack squat, just probably from psychological reasons, but then also like stability. Because like with it, I just feel more safe like in a hack squat, whereas I know I'll tap out early like on a barbell, just because it's something about the weight being on top of me. But yeah, I really like a hack squat, making sure that you get depth, not like a half hack squat, which I see a lot.
Yes, true. I think hack squat, very dependent on the machine and how it runs.
Yeah.
And again, like your limb length, like I I struggle. Only some hack squats I can feel my glutes on.
Yeah.
Most of them I feel quads, and I will use them for quads specifically. But
Depends
yeah,
on
like
foot position too. Sorry to cut you off.
yeah,
feet
depends
position
on
and angle.
foot position. So further forward is obviously going to be more glutes. Further back towards the bottom of the plate is going to be more quads. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like Loz and I are completely different heights and biomechanics, so we're going to have different exercises that hit our glutes better. I don't know how many I've said, but
4?
maybe 4.
Yeah.
So I'll do one more. I really actually like a pin-loaded seated leg press. So not the 45-degree one, the one where your feet are straight in front of you with like a high foot position.
Yeah.
Because I can really feel my glutes and really drive through my glutes on that one.
Yeah.
When I do the 45-degree leg press, I feel a lot more like hamstring, quad. I feel like sometimes if I am pushing, I feel like I can go heavy on it, but I lose range or my butt kind of curls up a little bit when I try and go like really push myself on the 45-degree leg press. So I actually prefer the seated one and just really focusing on keeping it in your glutes. And you don't have to go super deep with that either because you're trying to hit glutes, not quads. So it's not about like heaps of knee flexion. So yeah, I like that one.
Love it. Now I kind of want to go and train.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all? We're done? Amazing. Yeah. Thanks, guys. That was a super fun episode. I really, really enjoyed that reflection and little like listener Q&A. We'll try and do a few more Q&As into the new year. But thanks so much for anyone that has listened to us chat this year. We've had a lot of fun. I've loved it and I can't wait for next year. If you have any feedback or anything that you want to hear from us next year, please let us know. But otherwise, guys, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you in 2024.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone, and thank you so much for being part of our journey so far, and we look forward to bringing you some more exciting podcasts next year.
Can't wait. See you guys.